if you've ever happened upon Los Angeles, you know that the guy who's been a longtime columnist is none other than Bill Plaschke, right? You open up the LA Times, you look at the left side, and there's Bill Plaschke, who has seen it all, done it all, and talked to them all. And he had an exclusive sit down with Jeanie Buss. Jeanie Buss, of course, is taking over for her late father to run the actually took over for her brother, who took over for her late father to run the LA Lakers. And instead of like reading the conversation, we just reached out to Bill, and he kind enough to spend some time with us here on the Doug Gottlieb Show. Bill, what was? I mean, I again, I've read the piece, but what was Jeanie like in terms of? She seems like a very fun, delightful person, and I know she wants to make this work. What was her kind of? What was her vibe like?
Yeah, that's a great question. She's very fun. I mean, she's very nice and very accommodating, and always smiling. But there's I sense that a resolve in her. She's, when I requested the interview, I didn't expect to hear back right away. And she got back right away saying she wanted to do it because I think she wanted Laker fans to know she's really upset. I wish she was upset enough to fire Rob Pelinka, but she's not there yet. But she could tell behind her smile, there was this steely stare, like she was embarrassed last year, and changes were coming, and she's involving now more than just Pelinka. I thought that was a big part of the story, was that she confirmed what we'd all been saying, that Magic Johnson's back in the mix, and Phil Jackson's back in the mix, and she's taking advice from everyone. So I think my takeaway basically is that Rob Pelinka's on a short leash. They got to get a good coach. They got to figure out Russell Westbrook. They got to make LeBron happy. They got to fix this, or else. And people say, well, she's so nice, there's not going to be an or else. But remember, she fired her brother. So she can be cutthroat when she has to be. And I think she's given him 1 year to get it right.
Okay. Why are you bringing Magic Johnson back? I mean, he was an abject disaster.
Yeah, well, maybe in a position where he's a distant consultant, just taking her phone calls and not having to run the operations. Maybe that's what she thinks will help. Well, she's just so damn blind loyal too. You know that about her. She's loyal to family and friends, and that gets her in trouble sometimes. And frankly, I like bringing Phil Jackson back. Phil is a disaster in New York, but he gets the Lakers. He knows the culture. He knows coaching. I like bringing Phil. And Magic, again, Magic's kind of in and out and not sure where he's going to be at any given day of the week. But that's who she's relying on. And I'm sure critics will understandably say, well, this is crazy. She has also throw Kurt Rambis in the mix. And she's talking about Rob Pelinka, Kurt Rambis, Phil Jackson, Magic Johnson, none of whom should be running an operation. And that's all true.
Wait.
We'll see if they can pull this one out.
I guess my question is, if Rob Pelinka helped build a championship team and Magic wasn't involved then, why is Rob Pelinka on so much of a hot seat now?
Because the last 2 years he kind of dismantled. He's taken the heat. He's taken the fall. And I think Jeanie will take Magic's word over Rob's. I think Rob's going to get squeezed out in terms of opinion and priority and influence here. Because basically, I think she loves Rob, but he's going to take the fall for the last 2 years, trading away, getting rid of that bringing up a championship team, getting rid of Alex Caruso, and signing and trading for Russell Westbrook. Even though that was LeBron's trade, Pelinka's going to take the heat for it. And I just think by listening to Magic and Phil, she's slowly putting the squeeze on Rob.
Okay, Russell Westbrook. Are they going to keep him?
I thought they weren't. Now I think they are. I think they're going to hire a coach and tell the coach the first requirement is make Russell Westbrook play again, make him work again. I think they are. Everything I've talked to, and I was ripping him, and I was saying he's gone, he's got to be gone.
There's only one guy who can do it. Scotty Brooks.
You think so?
I mean, that's got to be the guy. I think it's a flawed premise, right? There's just, how do you play? He has to have the ball on a team where you want LeBron to have the ball, and if LeBron doesn't have the ball, you want Anthony Davis to have the ball, and otherwise you got to have him play as a backup. But again, then you have to rework the entire roster to put shooting around him because he can't shoot, so there's no space, and he doesn't guard. But other than that, he's great.
No,
I agree.
$47
million.
He should be gone, but I think they can't get enough for him, and nobody will take him. And that's a good point. I bet Scotty Brooks. I think their top choice is Doc Rivers. They want to bring back Doc Rivers to L.A. But I think if Doc wins his first series, with his second round series against Miami, he's not going to be available. So I think Scotty. I think your point's a good one, Doug. I think Scotty could. I've heard his name near the top of the list. But that would be in line with what I just said. Instead of trading Westbrook, I think they're leaning toward finding a coach to work with him.
What about LeBron? There's a lot of talk. Hey, look, LeBron wants to re-sign, and then you feel like, is that another Kobe deal where 40-year-old LeBron playing and, man, now do we have to go and get Bronny and put him on the team, and it can go bad in a hurry. How much power does LeBron have, and how much does he use in this current form of the Lakers?
Enormous power, and he uses all of it, and that's what scares me. I think they should trade LeBron. I've written that. I think they need to start from scratch. Jeanie basically told me she's not trading LeBron. They're going to instead, they want him. You talk about a Kobe-like contract. They're hoping for a Kobe-like retirement game when LeBron breaks Kareem's record next year. They're hoping LeBron can carry his star power for 2 more years. They want to make LeBron happy, and they're going to do whatever it takes to make him happy. So she claims they don't run. I said, Jeanie, be honest, LeBron and Clutch Sports run the team. She said, no, they don't. She's the owner. The buck stops with her. She's adamant that they, of course, she's not going to admit that if they do run the team. She's adamant that it's her team. She won't give it to him. But she wants to make him happy. She clearly wants to make LeBron happy. So he's got a ton of power. And I think it's a mess. I think the only way out of this, I don't think they can win with LeBron and AD. I don't know what you think. I don't think there's a way out of this.
I think they could if they didn't have Russell Westbrook. I just
Yeah.
don't. And I kind of think some of this, and I've talked to some of the Lakers. I did a podcast with Stanley Johnson. I hung out with him, and he's like, no, Russ was playing good at the end of the year. You got to bring back Russ. I think this turn on Russ is nobody wants him. Nobody wants to give him and LeBron wants him. LeBron thinks he wants to make it work because of their friendship, and I think that's what that's all about. Yeah, trading him I think sounds like a great idea, right? It's the reverse of what they've done previously, which is trade for star players and give away all these assets that are really good players around the league. I don't think that's just doesn't feel like the Laker way. The Laker way is acquiring stars, not trading stars. And, remember they held on to Kobe when Kobe wanted out. Obviously it was a different time and a different time in his career. But here's what I think. I think that at the end of it, LeBron plays for the Lakers. He's not a Laker. And that's a really...
All right, Doug. You're dead on, and I can tell you live in the area. You get it. You're exactly right. And he breaks... I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to write this when the season starts. I don't care if he breaks the record. I don't care if he beats Kareem. I don't feel connected to him in any way. And the town of LA doesn't either. So my point is, why keep him around just for star value? He can turn somebody else into a champion, help you rebuild. Get rid of him.
It's a crazy thing. What about Phil? I know he doesn't want to coach. I understand, and look, unlike some others, I actually still hold Phil in great respect, but because of his ability to deal with stars, right? Like that's the magic to Phil. Magic to Phil isn't just the triangle. Okay, the triangle is an offense that was about spacing based upon how the game, I felt like, used to be. It's still a spacing game, but it's changed and evolved. But still, the real Phil Jackson was he could handle stars. How would he handle this, especially considering he's made some comments before about LeBron and the posse comment, and whether or not you like that word or not, it still does ring true. Like, he rolls deep with his guys, and they come in and they try and run the show. How is that dynamic?
Yeah, I think we're going to know a lot more about what Phil thinks when we see what the Lakers do. I've heard that Phil would like LeBron traded. I've just heard that. But I've got nothing to back that up. No on-the-record stuff to back that up. But I think Phil, I do know that Phil would like them to keep Westbrook and try to make it work with him. And I do know, because when I asked Jeanie, I said, you got to trade Westbrook, right? She says, we got to hire a coach first and see how that works. So I think Phil, if Phil were physically able to do it, I'd support him being back on the bench. I would. But he's just not physically able to do that anymore. But I think we're going to see a lot of what we see coming up is going to be Phil's fingerprints and where that stands with LeBron. Yes, I don't think he loves LeBron. But
No.
Again, I think Jeanie would overrule him on that. But it's such a dizzying collaboration. There's so many cooks. And I was like, Jeanie, why don't you just hire one person to run the damn thing? An outsider, an outside voice, a non-Laker. And she's like, everybody collaborates. I'm a collaborator. I'm going to keep collaborating. And I'm going to rely on the people I trust. So there's a charm in that. But the charm wears thin if you don't make the playoffs 7 of the last 9 years.
It's really crazy when you look at it in totality, right?
It's,
if you hyper-focus,
it's unbelievably crazy, Doug. You're right. They've been one of the worst. They've had one of the worst records in the NBA the last 4 or 5 years. And that championship, I'm sorry, it's tainted. It was in a bubble year when LeBron and AD had all summer to rest. They weren't brittle. They didn't get hurt. They just turned it on for 2 months. That 2020 championship doesn't feel real.
Well, no, listen, I'll tell you from people inside the bubble. Bill Plaschke, our guest, LA Times, he did a sit-down. You should pick it up. You're on social media, latimes.com, or you can follow him on social media as well. That's where that story is available. He sat down with Jeanie Buss. It's a really eye-opening interview. Look, what's amazing about it was just the Clippers kind of fizzled and broke apart in the bubble. The Lakers were close, right? This is that the Lakers were – the guys were not happy in the bubble and nobody – and they had 2 games postponed because of the riots in Milwaukee. And that helped them kind of get it together. And then shortly after that, their families arrived, and they survived that round of the playoffs. And the Clippers did not. They weren't beating the Clippers in straight-up games. They weren't beating them that year. Clippers were better.
No chance at all. The Clippers were a much better team, and Doc just lost control of them. The Clippers, they protested, Lou Williams went to the strip club and got the wings, the hot pepper wings. It was a nightmare. The Clippers completely, you're right, they combusted. The Lakers basically won a title because they were able to stick together. That's the only reason they won that title.
Yeah. Now, which LeBron should get some credit for, right? Like, he helped keep them together. That I absolutely, and they were a great defensive team, and Frank Vogel deserves some of the credit for that as well. But then they tore it apart and tried to build this offensive team, and it was an abject disaster. And they gave away all the pieces that were pretty good.
They gave away KCP was a championship player, Kyle Kuzma, a championship player. They just gave away, and then Alex Caruso, championship player, gave him away. They didn't re-sign him. They made terrible mistakes. Just Pelinka, and LeBron's a terrible general manager, and I wish he'd keep his nose out of it. But that's not realistic. You know, he's going to try to pick the team again, and if you let him pick the team, you've got disaster. So there's hope. Laker fans must hope Phil Jackson's got more say moving forward, and maybe that'll help change things.
Bill, great stuff. It's an excellent article. I encourage everybody to read it. Let's talk again soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're awesome, Doug. Thanks, buddy. See you.